If you're running a supplement brand doing 2 million to 5 million per year and you feel stuck at your current level, I'm going to share something with you today that most agencies will never tell you. Because quite simply, they don't know how people really buy supplements. At Creative Thirst, we've spent years analyzing what separates supplement brands that break through revenue ceilings and what separates those that plateau and never move beyond $1 million. After optimizing many supplement pages, after tracking millions in conversion data and interviewing thousands of buyers, we've discovered something critical. There are 4 distinct psychological forces that influences how people buy supplements. And those forces are trust, belief, desire, and hope. Now, most supplement marketers stumble through those forces accidentally. They optimize the wrong things at the wrong time. And today's episode is a perfect example of that. Today we're going to be looking at the supplement company called Ritual. Ritual is a supplement company that is known for its transparency in science-backed traceable ingredients. They started with just one product, and now they've expanded. And when we reverse engineered their entire growth strategy, we discovered that they masterfully implemented 2 of these 4 forces, trust and hope. And that execution alone built them a $250 million company. But they left desire and belief completely unoptimized. And in our estimates, that represents about a 30 to 50% untapped growth potential, even at their current scale of $250 million. In today's episode, I'm going to break down our complete supplement buying forces framework, showing you exactly what Ritual mastered and what they missed. And then I'm going to give you our implementation methodology so you can systematically address all 4 forces without their New York Times budget. Let's get to it. Welcome to Health Business Mastery, the Creative Thirst podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Hewitt. So after working with supplement brands for over 13 years and tracking what actually drives purchase decision, we've identified that supplements solve both a functional need and an emotional need. Now, that dual nature creates these 4 distinct psychological forces that customers wrestle with, usually subconsciously, before they buy any dietary supplement. And here's all of those 4 forces in depth. The first force we're going to look at is desire. Desire is the push away from pain. Now, the first force, desire, is what initially pushes prospects towards your marketing message. But here's what most supplement brands get wrong. They think desire is what the customer wants. But really, desire is about wanting to escape something negative, what they don't want. So in our client work, we identified that desire operates on 3 distinct levels, and most brands only tap into one. The first level is functional desire, what your product does physiologically in the body. Like it supports blood pressure, it promotes a healthy inflammatory response, or it supports metabolism. This is where 90% of supplement brands stop. It's the weakest level. Level 2 is social desire, how the problem impacts their daily lives beyond just physical symptoms. So, for example, chronic joint pain doesn't just hurt, it keeps you from enjoying your life. Level 3 is emotional desire. And this is the negative emotional state that really drives the person to search for a solution. This can include anger at being dismissed by doctors. This can include fear of declining health, loss of vitality. This is the most powerful level, the one that actually gets people to take action. As Eugene Schwartz, one of the greatest marketers in the world, taught us, said, "You can't create desire. You can only intensify it." So when we audit client pages, we look for desire amplification across all 3 of these levels. Most brands, as I said, hit one level at best. And that's why their conversion rate sits between 1 and 2%, while our optimized pages convert well over that. But here's the problem. Desire alone is weak. Somebody might desperately want to lose 15 pounds, but if they're unwilling to change their lifestyle, that desire has no energy behind it for them to actually do anything. They won't buy because they won't believe anything will actually work. And that's where the second force comes in, the force of hope. So the hope force is like an energy that propels desire. I define hope as the prospect's belief that there's finally a new solution with a unique mechanism that will work this time when others haven't. And this is critical because hope isn't about generic optimism here. It's all about logical, grounded belief in a specific mechanism. And in our client work, we've discovered that hope in supplement marketing must be expressed through 3 components. The first component is your ingredient combination, your particular supplement panel. That's been missing from everything else that they've tried before. The second component is the unique mechanism. And this is the method of action that makes logical sense in a structural level in the body. It's how your formula actually supports systems. And component 3 is bioavailability or some type of proof. This is why your form of ingredients or your specific form of ingredients will actually get absorbed when inferior forms in other supplements don't. Here's an example of hope. Scientific studies indicate that pectins and alginates can bind to toxins and eliminate them. This is the only detox formula combining patented modified citrus pectin from citrus peels with modified alginate complex from seaweed. That's the hope architecture, and it acknowledges what hasn't worked. It explains the mechanism why it failed, and it positions your supplement as the solution for addressing that specific failure point. When we optimize product detail pages for hope, we build what I call mechanism education blocks. And these are strategic content pieces that positioned right after the desire amplification in order to convert skeptics who are researching before they're looking to buy. Now, hope optimization typically improves conversion alone around 22 to 34% in client works that we've done. And that's because you're converting the educated researchers, not just the impulse buyers. But desire and hope alone aren't enough. They create the push force towards a purchase, but there are 2 pulling forces that either enable or prevent that purchase from happening. And that's where forces number 3 and forces 4 come in. Force number 3 is trust, which is really about external validation. Trust acts as both a pushing force and a pulling force, depending on how you implement it. When trust is used as a pushing force, it can be expressed as a common enemy positioning. So when you align with your customers' existing distrust of the industry practices, you push them towards trusting you by demonstrating shared values. For example, if your customers are skeptical of proprietary blends, then you make transparency your rallying call. And that's what Ritual did. Now, trust can also be a pulling force, like I said. This can be expressed as verifiable credibility. Most brands fail completely in this area. They try to borrow credibility through generic claims rather than staking specific verifiable claims that can be backed up. In our client work, we've identified trust signals that actually move the needle, and here are some. Named medical advisors with verifiable credentials, not doctor-formulated. Third-party testing certificates displayed prominently, not just claims of testing. Actual supplying sources, not just premium ingredients. Manufacturing facility specifications, not just GMP or good manufacturing practices. The pattern we discovered is that vague trust claims usually trigger skepticism, and specific verifiable trust signals eliminate it. When we implemented our verification architecture approach, it positions trust signals at every moment of doubt, not just at random places on the page. And we typically see a lift anywhere between 18 and 31% of conversion improvements because we're removing the primary reason supplement shoppers abandon, which is, will this work? But even with desire amplified, hope created, and trust established, there's still one final force that determines whether someone buys a supplement or not. And that force is the force of belief. Belief is what your worldview is. And belief is, believe it or not, the most sophisticated force in our framework. But one thing that most agencies completely miss is belief because they're not thinking about it. We define belief as what the prospect already believes about themselves and the solution. And this is the worldview that they bring to your sales page. It must be aligned with your marketing and not fight against it. Now, belief also operates in this pushing and pulling nature. And when it acts as a pushing force, prospects want to believe that a solution exists. They want to believe that there's something that will work for them this time. And this creates forward momentum when you validate their search. The key here is to support their belief, acknowledge their existing beliefs as valid, and then position your solution as compatible with their worldview. For example, the belief that the customer may have might be, my body is different and generic formulas don't work for me. So if you use our belief alignment framework as a pushing force, you validate the belief, then show how your solution works within that existing reality. So here's how to use belief alignment in this example. You're right, a one-size-fits-all doesn't work. Women at 25, 35, and 55 have completely different nutritional needs. That's why we formulate for specific life stages. So this force creates a conversion lift by making prospects feel understood. But belief can also be a pulling force when they're anchored to beliefs about themselves. Those are specific concerns, doubts, or limiting beliefs that prevent purchase even when desire, hope, and trust and belief alignment exists. In this case, you want to use belief overcoming, which is the pulling force of belief. So in order to directly address the concern with proof or mechanisms that eliminate the obstacle, you might look at belief like this. I don't know if this will work for my specific condition, right? That may be the belief that exists in their mind. So here you're trying to change the belief. And how you do this might sound like this. Our formula addresses the nutritional deficiencies most common in women with condition X. Here are 3 customer stories from women with similar situations who saw improvements within 60 days. Now, this force creates conversion lift by removing the final barriers preventing purchase after all other psychological forces have been satisfied. In our client work, we've identified the most common supplement buyer belief as being 1. Most supplements don't work because ingredients are cheap and poorly absorbed. Or 2, natural solutions are safer than pharmaceutical drugs. Or the third belief we identified is that my body is unique and this might not work for me. Our belief alignment methodology works like this. For the absorption skeptic, here's an example. You're right to be skeptical. Most multivitamins use synthetic vitamins that 40% of people can't convert in their bodies due to MTHFR variations. That's why we use methylfolate, the bioactive form your body uses immediately. When their belief is aligned, we typically see an additional 12 to 23% conversion improvement. So what did Ritual get right and what did they leave on the table? Well, Ritual masterfully optimized 2 of the 4 forces, those 2 being hope and trust. But they essentially ignore the other 2, desire and belief. And that's why they're leaving a significant amount of growth on the table. Let me show you exactly what they did and what they missed. Hey, I just want to interrupt this podcast for a brief second. Have you ever wished someone could just look under the hood of your supplement business and tell you what's not working, what you should double down on, and what you need to stop doing? Well, that's exactly what I do on a business audit. And I do it with a proven system built to generate results across every stage of your supplement D2C business. So if you're looking to scale with clarity and confidence, apply to become a client at creativethirst.com. I'll show you exactly how to unlock your next stage of growth and mention the audit that you heard on the podcast. Now, let's get back to the show. First, let's look at hope. And this is where Ritual's execution is nearly perfect to our hope framework. Go to their website right now, and you'll see on their homepage, their value proposition says, "Our radical idea, supplements should work." From university-led clinical studies to patented capsule design, our scientists formulate each product for efficacy. That's not hope positioning. That's not generic optimism. It's grounded in a specific scientific approach. Their product pages execute our three-component hope formula almost flawlessly. Remember, component number one being unique ingredient forms. They don't just list vitamin D. They specify we opted for vegan certified form, sustainably harvested lecithin, as opposed to non-animal friendly sources like sheep's wool or fish liver. In component number two, they implemented the scientific mechanism. Every ingredient includes a scientific reason for that specific form. Here's some examples. Iron in the chelated form because it's backed by decades of human studies and it's gentle on the stomach, unlike other forms. But they also nailed hope in a third component, bioavailability and proof. They obsess over explaining why their forms actually get absorbed when inferior forms don't. This is exactly the mechanism architecture we use with all of our clients. Ritual built an entire educational platform around it. Their product pages answer the critical hope question why this will work when other supplements haven't. And when customers understand the mechanism, they have the hope, not the wishful thinking they need to make a purchase. But Ritual also mastered the force of trust through radical transparency. The second force was brilliantly executed, both as a pushing and a pulling force. In fact, this is how they started their company back when they were just one single product, one single prenatal vitamins. Their homepage now declares, "Clean isn't clear enough. We're traceable." And this harks back to their actual capsule, which is clear. You can actually see through it. So a little play on words there. But they support that with additional copy that says, "From rigorous heavy metal testing to human rights audits, our visible supply chain is the first of its kind." This is our verification architecture approach implemented at scale. Trust here is used as a pulling force, using verifiable credibility. They named specific people on their scientific advisory board, not just doctor formulated, but real people with verifiable credentials, staking their professional reputations. They list actual suppliers and location of sourced ingredients, or the location or manufacturing of each individual ingredient. They publish third-party testing results. They show rigorous heavy metal testing and human rights audits prominently. They built what they call the first visible supply chain of its kind. These are all specificity trumps in this case, and they're all verifiable trust signals positioned at the exact moments of doubt. Trust is a pushing force. It also throws rocks at your enemies. And their messaging implicitly positions itself against big supplement companies that hide behind proprietary blends and opaque sourcing. The phrase "clean isn't clear enough" is not just a cute phrase that matches their supplement capsules. It's a direct shot at competitors making vague quality claims and proprietary blends. So what about the other two forces? What did Ritual miss? Well, there's almost no desire amplification. They jump straight to their solution without intensifying the problem. Their hero image is about them. Our radical idea, supplements should work. Not about the customer's pain, not about what's at stake if you don't address the needs of these supplements, not about the functional, the social, or the emotional consequences. Remember, supplements sit right in the middle between a functional need and an emotional need. And take a look at their product pages. There's no amplification of that functional desire, the cellular level consequences of suboptimal nutrition, the social desire, what daily activities does poor health, low energy, what do these prevent, and the life experiences that you're missing. There's also no emotional desire, the frustration, fear, or anger driving the search for a solution. They assume that desire exists, and they jump straight to hope, the mechanism, and trust, the transparency. Now, this works when you're spending millions on brand awareness and when your traffic is warm because of all that money you're spending on brand awareness. But it leaves conversion on the table from those lukewarm prospects who need desire amplification before they can care about the bioavailability forms or the transparency or the traceable ingredients. In our client work, when we add the proper desire amplification to pages that already have good hope and trust execution, we typically see a lower lift, but that lift is anywhere in the range of 15 to 28% of conversion. And Ritual also missed the force of belief. This is the second missed opportunity. Now, what I mean by belief is quite simply, what is it that your prospect already believes about themselves, about the marketplace, or about the product? Ritual's entire messaging strategy assumes prospects already believe that supplements can work if they're formulated correctly, and that their hope and trust execution speaks to people who've already decided to try supplements. They just need to choose the right brand. Now, that worked when Ritual first started because they only sold one supplement for prenatal women, and the belief that supplements work for pregnant women was already at the core belief of that audience. But as Ritual expanded to their product line, what about the prospects who hold limiting beliefs that prevent them from even considering supplements seriously? There is no driving force, no pushing or pulling in that at all. Ritual's messaging essentially says, here's our scientifically superior solution with transparent sourcing. Now, that works beautifully for people who have already believe supplements are worth trying. But like I said, it ignores the prospects who need their skepticism validated before they'll engage with any mechanism of action, education aspect at all. So when these four forces are used together, it creates a compounding effect. Ritual has hope and they have trust, and they're working beautifully together. But they're missing desire and belief. When you have both desire and hope, you're not only amplifying the problem, but you're also providing the mechanism through which the solution feels only possible, right? That's where the hope comes in, that your supplement is the only one that can solve this problem. Whereas trust and belief together validate the skepticism. They reinforce the thought that you're right to doubt the supplement quality. Then you demonstrate that you're the exception through trust signals. This makes trust feel earned rather than claimed. Now, when belief and desire are combined, they align perfectly with the worldview of your customer. Again, you're falling in line with what they already believe. You're validating their belief. One belief might just be, I forget to take my supplements every day, right? Validate that belief. You're right. That consistency is hard. Then intensify the desire by showing what that inconsistency will cost them. Our client data shows that brands that optimize all four forces see typically between a 40 to 80% minimum improvement versus just optimizing two of the four forces. Now, if Ritual is leaving even 30 to 50% growth on the table for missing those other two forces and the compounding effect of all fours together, that could represent another 75 to 125 million in valuation potential. The compounding effect isn't 1 plus 1, it's 2 times 3. And each force makes the others work better because they're interconnected. They're interconnected through customer psychology and how people actually buy supplements. When you optimize all four forces over 6 months or 12 months, you're not just improving conversion, you're building the complete psychological foundation for sustainable growth within your supplement company. After implementing the supplement buying forces framework for supplement brands that we work with, I can tell you with certainty, the brands that break through the revenue ceilings over the next 12 months will be the ones who understand all four forces: trust, belief, desire, and hope. Not just two of them, all four systematically optimized and working together. That's what we do at Creative Thirst, and that's what Ritual partly did with two forces. That's what separates the brands that are struggling and those that are pulling in millions of dollars every day. Most agencies will never tell you about these forces. Even when they study Ritual's success, they only see the transparency and the education, the service tactics that they're doing. They miss the psychological framework underneath, and they definitely don't see the gaps. But now you do. You see the complete framework. You've seen which forces Ritual mastered and which they left on the table. And you've seen a bit of our systematic implementation and methodology and approach. The question is, are you going to keep guessing at what works or systematically engineer all four psychological forces that drive supplement buying decisions? If you need help implementing this framework, go to creativethirst.com and apply to become a client. Are you still listening? Here's a little bonus for you. Here's our proven sequence. We start with desire because it's the entry point. If prospects bounce before engaging with your message, then nothing else matters. Then we engineer hope. Once desire hooks your prospects deeper into reading your sales message, we shift to the unique mechanism, providing the energy and direction that the customer needs through educational blocks. We add or restructure ingredient explanations on product pages. Once the unique mechanism is aligned, we move on to trust and belief. By month 6, you've systematically implemented all four forces, but more importantly, you have data of which implementation drove the biggest improvements to your audience, and you have the compounding effect to scale.